Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Nathaniel. I'm Michael, and today we are here with Melissa. Melissa, introduce yourself. Let them know who you are and what you do.
Hi, everyone. I am Melissa Richards, and I am CEO of a company called Only Christian Talk. I have a podcast called Christian Talk, hosted by Melissa Richards, as well as I do coaching. I do coaching mainly for females, but I do a couple of males too, on the perspective of life and how to deal with relationships and why relationships are working and why they don't work, and how to communicate. I think that a lot of times we have problems communicating, and when we have great conversations about it, coaching, giving people tools on on working things out, it's a great business. I enjoy doing it, and I think that anything that anybody's doing, if they're not enjoying it, then it's probably not the business that they should be in. So that's what I do.
That's awesome. So it sounds like it's not just like only a podcast, but like you have like a mentoring service as well. So like Only Christian Talk, what is it? Like what do you want it to be? And like what's everything you do?
Okay, so Christian podcast, like if anybody ever has time to go and listen to the conversations that we're having, it's I think a lot of times when people think about Christians or even Christians themselves, they don't know that like it's like such a different conversation. Like, and it's not thou art Jesus says this, and no, it's like using your issues to relate to the Bible, or using what's in the Word of God to just have a casual conversation. I find that a lot of times what people have a hard time memorizing the Bible, it's for a couple of things. Either they're not reading the Bible or they're not relating to it, right? So I was just talking to my girlfriend earlier on today, and I was telling her that, a lot of times we have hard times, period. And what happens in hard times is we change, right? And we don't realize that our best life, our best attitudes, our best way of living, it should be consistent in our life. And I find that we're not consistent. And I find we're not consistent a lot of times because we don't believe in what we do, right? So I really believe that I love God. I love everything. I continue to fall in love with God all the time. So I want to be that way in good times and in bad times. So what do I have to do? I have to learn to speak this way all the time. I need to learn to have conversations about God, whether I'm having a hard time or not. And that's the whole reason why I came up with Christian Talk. I want to know that I can relate to um, the Bible in every situation, whether through the storm or not the storm. I want to know that if someone came and told me, you know what, I'm having a relationship issue, and it just doesn't seem normal, and I'm like, well, that Joseph, when Potiphar's wife was trying to sleep with Joseph, you can kind of tell there was something going on in their house. It's normal. Like if she was happy, if things were going on well, she probably wouldn't try to step out with Joseph. Like there's issues there. And a lot of times when we're reading the Bible, we're reading these passages or scriptures, I would say, and we're not realizing that this is life. This is real life. And I find that if we have conversations with people about real life and relating to the Bible, it's easier to memorize scripture. It's easier to remember where God's saying, thy word I hide in my heart that I may not sin against you. God doesn't want me to sin. And I also remember that because I use it in my conversations all the time. So Christian Talk is learning how to speak God's language, right? And learning how to communicate God's language. And I find that when we don't know how to communicate, we get so frustrated and we get angry and we say this person this way and this way. And it's really not that. It's just that you probably don't understand them, or you don't know how to communicate what's going on in your own mind. So Christian Talk is about conversation and how to have conversation. And it's about the love of God. And I love to hear people's testimony about what God has been doing in their life. And so I can relate with them, and also tell them how God has transformed me and the things going on in my life. And also letting people know that Christians are humans. Like we have issues, and everyone thinks that as you're a Christian and you don't have issues. We have so many issues in life, whether it be relating to our other halves, our spouses, whether it is hard getting a relationship. Oh, I want a guy to like me, or I want a girl to like me, and I don't know how to approach them, or just finding out that a lot of people are so socially awkward. Like they don't know how to keep friends. They don't know how to be around a group of people and without feeling funny, not realizing maybe there's a couple of issues you might want to talk about, right? And let them know that you're not the only one that has those issues. Christian talk releases all those things, and it lets people know that we're all human, but we all have different desires, and people that desire who God is in their life, that's what Christian talk is about, and never downfalling anybody else for their beliefs.
I really like that explanation you did of the whole thing there. I wanted to touch on what you said about communication.
Mm-hmm.
And how would you describe, I know Christian talk obviously is about Christianity, but how would you communicate with non-Christians?
Oh, that's the best. That's like, I wasn't a Christian all the time. And I'm not saying, there's some people that were raised in the church, but I wasn't. And I was in the church, and then I came back out of the church. And I find that people that are not Christians, I relate to them so much because I was there. I don't understand everything, but I understand a lot of how they feel when they're feeling. And they believe, a lot of times people outside the church believe that God doesn't like me. And I'm like, what? Or I can't. I remember someone saying to me, I can't go to church because if I go into the church will burn down. And I'm like, sweetheart, all of us, it's not you. Like, we all have sin. We're all sinners in need of grace. We're all sinners. We all struggle. And I find that speaking to people that are non-Christians are like the best conversations like ever. Letting them know that they're no different than I am. Where there's never, well, you're using that term to describe a different type of people, like Christians and non-Christians. I really don't, I speak to them the same way. The minute that I feel that you describe people as different from you, you put a barrier there. So I think we all have different desires. Some are almost the same and some are not. I can tell you why my actions might be different from yours because of my desire and my love of God. But if I'm speaking to a non-Christian, I can relate to them. But I don't think my conversation is much different than if I was talking to a Christian, because I really practice how to have Christian conversations, and I try my best not to make someone feel uncomfortable having these conversations with me. Like, if you're sitting, who's Moses? Who's Moses? And I'm not sitting down asking people, who's Adam and Eve? Did you know that who does that, right? And I find that the reason why I talk to anybody in general is for a positive outcome, right? I'm looking for an effective conversation, not just having a conversation because I can. I'm looking for a goal. Like, why am I talking to you guys even now? Like, it's for a purpose, not just because I can. And so talking to a Christian and a non-Christian is no different for me. And I don't look at people as you're a Christian and you're not a Christian.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome that you don't judge people and you talk to everyone the same, and yeah, it's good. I think like just speaking about religion and Christianity in general could be like an awkward topic for some people to talk about, or just a lot of people find it like uncomfortable to speak about like religion, but you talk about it so like you're so comfortable with it and like you want to share the gospel, and that's amazing. Yeah. What advice would you give to someone looking to start a podcast with like such an uncomfortable topic? Like, how did you do it?
I always say that if anybody's doing something, do what your heart desires. And regarding religion, I really know and believe that it's about your relationship with God, right? So where I'm not sure if you guys know me, like when I love restaurants, like I could brag about a restaurant. Like me and my daughter went to Demi's, and she knows I was like in heaven, right? And it's the same way I talk about God. Like, I'm so excited about it, right? So if anyone's going to talk about religion, talk about where God has brought you. Like, be excited about that. God has brought me from point A to point B, but that journey was amazing. I don't know how he did it, but that's what makes God who he is, right? If we were to know everything, then he wouldn't be God, right? So that's what makes it so beautiful. So I say to anyone that is starting a religious podcast, talk about God working in their lives. Because when people believe and know that God is there in you, then it transfers, right? And they're like, oh, let me go and taste and see. You're telling me that this God is great. I'm so excited about your journey. Let me go look into it for me. And so if I was giving anyone advice, is have a relationship with God first. And that's where everything starts, because I promise you, I don't think I'm one to be shifted off of my relationship with God. I meet with him. I have date nights with him. I get excited with him. So when I'm doing a podcast, it's really not about making up ideas. I'm just living a testimony of what God is doing in and through my life.
I really like that answer. I wanted to ask you about what you touched on earlier about kind of like mentoring other couples, or how did that start? Was it from Christian Talk? Was it before, or how did that start?
So I do it before I was doing it for free, right? And because I love talking to people, I love speaking to people regarding issues. And it's not that I don't have issues, I have a whole bunch, but I love talking to people about relationships and communication and how to deal with it, and giving them tools, different tools, and what might work for one person might not work for the other. Because I think we all have in our mind that if I tell someone, talk more to your spouse more when they're happy, and then this person's like, I don't like talking when I'm happy. Like, everybody's different, right? So I do this coaching, speaking with people, because it helps me, one, grow as a person, and it teaches me about researching things, right? Because everybody across the board, since I've been doing it, is different. I've yet to have two people the same. I really, and all of the people that I've done, I realize that we just don't know how to communicate. We don't know how to communicate. And then when you relate it to the word of God, God wants us to have a relationship with him. And when we could learn to have a relationship with God, we will take those amazing tools, and then we will learn to have relationships with others, right? And when you have empathy on knowing how horrible or just a sinner you are, and realizing God loves you anyway, you really start having empathy for when someone else does something wrong to you, right? You're like, look, God could forgive me through anything. I can forgive someone else. And that's where God says, forgive others and like I forgive you. And so when I'm speaking to someone and they're talking to me about what's going on in their life, in my coaching, I really relate the mind and how they think things, how they perceive things. Because a lot of times when people perceive things in a horrible way, everything that comes in their direction is horrible, right? For example, I let people realize that their actions and their words really matter, right? And it's not that I'm coaching people on things that they don't know. Most of them know everything that I'm telling them. It's just to tap in areas that they probably had dig down. I'm just pulling up areas in their mind that they were not using, right? So most people everybody I think really knows a lot, but they just don't know how to use it. They have the ideas of how to do things. What I'm doing is I'm giving them tools on how to use it, and letting them know that that we all have different areas, such as communication. We just either have a poor communication, or we have a hurtful communication. I always like to say that term, hurt people. Some people, they've been hurt when they were younger in relationships by men, so they never trust them again. Not really realizing that they had these issues, whether it be they could have been hurt from their father not showing up all the time, or my dad was home but not really home. I try to talk to him but he would ignore me, so there's a piece of rejection in there. So now they believe that every man is going to reject them for whatever reason. And having people talk about those things, they didn't realize maybe that's one of my issues. And I really talk to them and allow them to come out with the answers, because sometimes when you tell people something, they're like, oh, it's this way because you told me this. No, I let them get to the conclusion, right? And then when we talk more about that. So it's really good. And as I said, I'm learning as I go. I still do classes on training on how to coach properly, learning how to communicate with people, and understanding the things that they're not saying, learning about people's insecurities on different sides, still dealing with people that are just hurt right across the board, right? A lot of times as parents, what I think sometimes even myself, we fail to tell our children is that you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail, and it's okay because it's part of the journey. It's not who you are, but you're gonna fail. Um, one thing I learned was I was watching a sermon. I watch a lot of different sermons, and this pastor took his 13-year-old son, and he had a birthday party. And that what was weird about the birthday party is that he had all old people. Everyone was over 40 at the party. And it was the son at 13. And he had a bunch of people in one room, another bunch in another room. And he would tell his son to enter in every room every 15 minutes. And every room was a bunch of men telling the child how to be a man. But right now you're 13 and you're gonna fail. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna do stuff wrong. And that's okay. You're human. And that taught me a lot as well on how I deliver messages and just even seeing how people feel when they're wrong. Like, you ever talk to someone and they get so defensive when they've done something wrong, and you're like, okay, now I'm like, but it's okay. But now I get it. I get it. You've probably been taught that doing something wrong, saying something wrong makes you a wrong person, not that it's part of life, right? So that's where people get defensive and they just don't want to talk, or you're the bad person and I'm not, and I may be wrong for this 1 second, but you're always wrong. And you try to talk people down off of that ledge and letting them know that all these things are human, all these things are part of life and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's amazing that you're able to mentor people like that and just give a helping hand. Yeah. So you have the podcast, you have the mentoring and training. What's next for?
So I want to do something like what you guys are doing. And I admire it, by the way, by far. I want to start a clothing line, and not just because it's a clothing line. I want something that I'm wearing to, like, I want that I'm wearing a shirt that's telling someone something without talking to them, right? I have a button here that I used to wear. I don't know if you could see it.
May I pray for you?
May I pray for you? And let me give you the joke with it. When I first got this button and I put it on, I felt so weird. I felt so weird because I'm like, what are people gonna say? What are people gonna think, right? It's like I'm wearing Christianity on this button, letting everyone know, right? But after a while, it felt beautiful. Like, people were coming and talking to me. Can you pray for me? Oh, someone just died. Can you just pray for me? And I was like, wow, what a ministry. What a ministry. If I can just wear a shirt to let people know that there's people still out there that pray, people still out there that care, people still out there that has ideas regarding who God is, people out there willing to let people know that I am a follower of Jesus Christ now and forevermore. And that's what I want to do. I want to have shirts that just tell people who God is, or just say, listen, you're having a bad day, hold on, God got your back. You don't have to do nothing. Don't worry, you're human. Just chill out. He got your back. So that's probably my next thing, having a clothing line. Not as great as yours, not yet, but it's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
It's crazy to see how, like, just a simple button can do so much for other people and for yourself. So,
yeah.
I'm excited to see how the clothing line looks.
Thank you. Yeah, and if you don't do anything, if you don't try anything, you'll never know, right?
For sure.
You never know.
So, one of our rounding off questions, I wanted to ask you if you had a Satori moment in your journey so far. So what Satori means is it's a moment that awakens something within you, a sudden enlightenment or an epiphany. Would you say you've had that in your journey so far?
I have a lot of them, I would say. One of the things that I had that was something that was brought to my attention is I learned that, for me, I'm not sure if this is going to be answering your question, and if it isn't, please just let me know. I realized in life that I care a lot about what people think about who I am. And because you want to be effective, you want people to know the good about you, right? And I realized that I'm like, oh my gosh, you don't have control over someone's thoughts, right? And they have the right to think whatever they want to think. So I'm like, okay, in life, you don't live life trying to manipulate people into doing things good, right? You just live your life the right way. And hopefully, if someone's ready to receive that information, you be an example for them to know that, it's possible. Before, when I realized, like, some people are just mean people, and that's okay. I would probably be mean if I had the same experience as them. I don't know. But I realized that how I was living before is that people had such an effect on who I was as a person, where they had so much effect on me that I wouldn't have did Christian talk, right? What they said matters. And so again, I speak with God, I go on dates, and I talked with him, and he was saying to me, what people think is not really your business, right? Ask me, what do you think you should do, how to do it, when to do it, and that's between me and you. People are going to think bad about you if you're doing good or bad. And I was like, that didn't make sense, because if you're doing good, why would someone think that you're doing bad? I have no control over that. That's how some people are. You ever met someone that no matter what happens, they're just negative all the time? Like, they could see a beautiful cake and they're like, did you see that black spot in the middle of the cake? And we're like, where's the black spot? It's there, trust me. Or, today's such a beautiful day, the sky is blue. It doesn't matter, you see that ugly cloud over there? And I'm like, where did you find that? So the reality is, you don't have control over other people's thoughts, despite who you are, nor do I even want to have that. So that was a wake-up call for me. I thought that if you go out there and you give it all your best and you have the right intentions and everyone would think great. But I learned that that's just not how life is. So I woke up with that situation. So
definitely answered.
Yeah, that was a great answer. And 2 questions we ask all our guests. First question being, if you had to pick 3 spices to describe yourself, what would they be and why?
Oh, that's a good question. Three spices?
One spice. Okay,
I
want to see.
One spice?
I want to see.
The 3 or 1?
One. Mixed up.
Oh, thank God. Oh, wow. That's a hard question. Salt. I think I would describe myself as salt, because salt is what everybody puts in their food, and it's tasteful. It's tasteful, and I believe that I can be tasteful at times, but sometimes it could be too much, right? And sometimes you could put too little. So I would say salt. Salt is what everybody wants. It's part of the seasoning, and if I can't imagine anyone cooking without salt. I can't imagine it. So I would say salt. I don't want to. Maybe if you had asked me when I was younger, I would have said pepper, because I thought that fireball kind of person was the best person that everybody wanted. But as you learn a lot of hard life lessons, pepper is not the way to go. So I would say salt. Salt.
And the second question is, give us 3 music artists you listen to and why.
Oh, I love the question. So I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but it's Stephanie. Her name is Stephanie. And by the way, just to let you know, I only listen to gospel, right? So I listened to this girl. Her name is Stephanie, and her last name, Gretzinger. I don't know. It's just, that's her name. I love her because she speaks of God in a way that I can tell she has something that I said, I want that. Like, she has something with God that I admire, that I say, the words in the song brings me to a place that makes me say, this girl has a relationship with God and I love it. That's for one song. Um, I also like Smokey Norfolk. I don't know if you know him. A lot of his songs are talking about life experiences. I need God now. I fell. I fell, and you know what? I don't feel you, God. Like, where are you? This is a hard time. I feel that if I call you during a hard time and you're not there, um, where are you? And then the song is telling you, but I've been right beside you and you haven't noticed because your eyes are more on the problem instead of me. So I'm like, I can relate to that song because a lot of times when you're going through a storm, you believe God's not there because it's hard. And that's God is like literally sitting in front of you, but you can't see him because your eyes are on the storm and not who God is. So that's one guy. And the other person is, I just fell in love with him the other day. It's Chandler. Um, Chandler has uh, a way of singing in poetry, talking about his love for God and how he desires God and how he's falling in love with God every single day, and he's using his life experiences to putting it in a song, right? So I fell in love with that because I'm like, if you can take what's going on in your life and let people know the testimony about how God is real, you got me. You got me. So those three artists is what I like. Who I like, sorry.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, definitely have to check them out. Yeah, thank you, Melissa, for taking the time out of your busy day to come sit down with us. We appreciate it.
We'll
No
leave our
problem.
socials in the description box below. And yeah, it was great chatting with you.
No, it was my honor. I thank you for the opportunity, and I pray that your business continues to blow up. I am going to promote it all the time. So
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you.